Hello, and welcome to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm your host, Josh Carr, and with me today is a fantastic guest, yet again. It's Sophie Iles. How are you?
Hello, hi Josh. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. It's cold.
It's
very cold. But let's warm our cockles with some Doctor Who chat.
Yes.
So, yeah, you've been busy recently.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very busy.
I feel like lockdown. I've just been busy out of spite.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
have.
Since the very beginning of the year, there's been something going on.
Yeah.
Some of it good, some of it stressful, some of it really good, some of it. Yeah, it's been pretty mental, I think.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about some of the things that you've done this year.
Mhm.
But I want to start where we always start, which is at the very beginning. Where did your love of Who begin? Because I always find it interesting finding out where people jumped on and how people started. What was it like for you?
For me, it was a bit weird. So, bear in mind, I'm 30 years old. So, when Doctor Who wasn't on when I was a kid,
Yeah.
so I think I was born a couple of months after the show aired, like they ended,
Hmm.
1989. So I was born in the February of 1990. So by that point, they knew that Doctor Who wasn't coming back. So when it did come back, I was 15. I felt that Doctor Who wasn't for me. Like, I wasn't really a person who, as a teenager, was like, oh, this sci-fi show for kids is for me, because that's how I felt it'd been sold, and
Yeah.
it wasn't for me. I was very into Harry Potter at the time, not anymore, but I was really into Harry Potter at the time. I was really into anime, and I just wanted to work in animation. That's all I wanted, really. I was really set on all of that stuff. And I went to uni in Bristol, which is where I now
Hmm.
live. I went to the University of the West of England, and I joined the Anime Society and all sorts of things. And whilst I was at the Anime Society one day, someone had trouble with their computer. So I was helping them with their computer, and someone lovingly called me the Tin Dog. They called me Canine.
Oh,
And I went, what? I genuinely remember being like, who? And my friend Andy, unfortunately, we don't talk anymore. We were friends, quite close friends, during the Anime Society. My friend Andy was like,
yeah.
"What do you mean you do not know who K9 is, Sophie? You will love Doctor Who." And I was just like, "Oh, that. Oh, I don't know. I've never watched it. There's a lot. It's quite like it was quite mainstream at the time, and I didn't really know anything about it. I felt like I had to catch up and all that stuff." And him and my friend Amy were like, "No, no, 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 no. You can watch it from lots of different places. We're watching
Yeah.
the new one. I think it was like a week or 2 weeks time. Come watch it with us." So
Hmm.
I'm plonked down on a unit. Like, you have to imagine it as uni halls, or sat down on a university.
Yeah.
I think they came to mine actually. I think we all sat together, crowded around my laptop screen with BBC iPlayer to watch the brand new episode, which was Waters of Mars.
Yeah. Well,
Which of
that's a good starting point. It's a
it's
really good
good.
episode, but
It's really good.
it's a bit of a deep one to start with as well.
Well, the thing is, obviously, I didn't have the backstory. I just knew him as David Tennant is Time Lord, so he's a time traveler who travels through space and is an old alien, and that's kind of all I knew. Like, that's
Yeah.
it. I just knew that. And then my friends Amy and Andy had been watching it since they were kids, because they were slightly older than me. So they grew up watching it on UK Gold and stuff like that. So they
Hmm.
had more of an understanding of classic Who and then Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And I remember them just like completely freaking out during the whole Tom Victoria section. And I was just like, what? I wanted to understand. I wanted to be in on it. I wanted to
Yeah.
understand why they were so immensely shocked by the Doctor's actions at this point. Got to the end, and they were like, and then he's going to regenerate soon. He's going to become someone else. And I was just like, what's going on? I need to know. I don't like not having the answers to these questions. I
Yeah.
thought I would just be able to jump on and understand it, because I jumped on and went, what is this? I think it really helped, because then
Yeah.
I think they had, I don't know if they had the DVDs or they had the files, or I don't know how I watched it now, but I was given like a load of stuff to watch, and basically ended up binging all of Eccleston's era, practically all of Tennant's era by the
Yeah.
time he regenerated, which wasn't very long, because what was a Mars to End of Time?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was like
You've
a
only got like
2 week,
a.
but I was a student. It's fine. I didn't have any life, so it's fine. So I think I just basically binged all of it that I could, like New Who wise. And I think
Yeah.
from then on, I was definitely like a New Who Doctor Who fan, in the sense of
Yeah.
I was watching Tennant, I knew who Eccleston was, I knew who Rose was, and I'd really fallen into it. I think I remember having arguments with people that it was the Doctor, not Doctor Who, because that's what I thought was right at the time, and all this sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
I became this like new obsessive fan. And it kind of wore a bit thin, because I didn't have that many friends who were into Doctor Who at uni. I had
Hmm.
the two, but I didn't see them very often, and that was kind of it. Like I would just watch it when it was on, and
Hmm.
it was just kind of a thing I enjoyed, like Merlin or Life on Mars or Ashes to Ashes. It was something that
Yeah.
I would watch and I would enjoy, but it wasn't an obsession like I would say it is now.
Now.
Like it
Yeah.
is definitely something I think about 24/7 in some shape or form, whether it's what Doctor Who art should I draw on Sunday, or
Yeah.
what episode am I going to watch this, so it wasn't like that when I first started. It was very much like, oh, I'm excited to see who the next Doctor will be, but it didn't like take over my entire brain. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was cool. And it kind of just stayed a kind of lingering kind of show that I enjoyed up
Hmm.
until I think it was really anniversary. The anniversary was when it was when it really started to kick off for me. There was a
Yeah.
lot of marketing for it. I remember being very excited. I hadn't really watched a lot of the show before the new series.
Yeah.
I remember, I think this is the first actually of me mentioning this on a podcast. My first memory of watching a classic Doctor Who is watching a clip from the Aztecs and being so confused I turned it off. I
Wow.
didn't know what
That.
it was, which obviously
Yeah.
now I'm like, no, baby Soph, go turn it back on and watch
go,
it again.
go and watch it.
Go watch it.
Yeah. I was.
I
I was
remember
gonna
being
say
so
like.
confused. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say so because I've sort of had the same thing where I was a distinctly a new Who fan for a
Mm,
very, very long time. Obviously, I had different experiences to you because you watched it when you were quite a bit older than I when I started. I was in that prime age
mm,
when it first came back. Um, so yeah, like going back to New Who, going back to Old Who was always something that I wanted to do, but it just seemed so scary and daunting. And every time I watched a bit, I'd be like, is this the right place to jump on?
yeah.
Maybe I'll leave it and then I'll maybe try again another day. And yeah, it's always a tough one to get so used to New Who and then
Mm.
go back to the old ones. So when did you really start getting into classic Who then? Because as I said, you mentioned the Aztecs and
Mm. Well,
you turned it off and then
yeah, I think there are lots of kind of key moments. I was part of like the Tumblr fandom for a little while,
yeah,
where I was really in Doctor Who on Tumblr, which is a dangerous place to be frank with you.
it really
A long
is.
time ago. I don't think it's so much as now. I think it's all kind of deadened. But I used to be part of the role play fandom, and I used to look at all the artwork on there and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I met quite a few people who were into Doctor Who, but specifically classic, really, through that. And I'm still friends with them today, and they're massive supporters of my work, and they're wonderful people. But they were like, "Oh, have you ever?" Because I was in the role play fandom, so to explain to people who don't know what the role play fandom is, you probably know, but it's kind of people who would like basically write fan fiction together, but you would take on a
Mhm.
role of a character. So as an example, I would write the 12th Doctor, and then other people from different eras of the series could write whatever character they wanted with me, and we would create a story based upon these two characters.
Yeah.
So, for example, I had a friend who wrote Ace, and I was like, oh, we could have the 12th Doctor and Ace meeting because they've not met and they should, and they could do adventures together. But we would then take in turns writing. So, for example, I would write something like the 12th Doctor sat at his desk in St. Luke's scribbling away, and then she'd write Ace burst open the office door. Professor, there's a problem. And the Doctor be like, how did you even find me? And then it would continue as like kind of like those old like story games where you would turn over a piece of paper and then pass on. It's like
that's exactly what was in my head.
Yeah, it's very much like that, but just with text. And people, like some of the best writers seem to be people who come from that era of writing, where they've had to kind of collaborate a plot with someone else, but almost blind, because you can never really know what that character's going to do. So it's like almost like D&D meets fan fiction, meets Doctor Who, all in a really mad blur. And it's that's kind of how, if you look at the RP, like some of it's a bit weird, but for the most part, people that I used to write with, we would create like worlds and backstories for brand new companions.
That's amazing.
And it was fun. Yeah. And I did that for a few years, and it made me kind of realize how much I love to write and stuff like that. But what was really interesting was one of my friends, who I think it was the Ace friend, was like, oh, have you not watched any of the 7th Doctor stuff? Because I think you'd enjoy it based upon how much you're enjoying us writing together with the 12th Doctor and Ace and stuff. So it's like, well, I really like Ace, what I've seen of Ace, because you're writing Ace. And they're like, yeah, I'm writing her authentically to how she is in the show. I think you'd enjoy that era. So my first kind of run-in with the classic Doctor Who stuff was, I think it was Remembrance of the Daleks was my first classic Doctor Who story, which I really enjoyed it. And I started like enjoying it. And I I watched Remembrance. Then I went back and watched Dragonfire. And then I ended up watching almost all of the 7th Doctor era in some shape or form. And again, I loved that. I love the 7th Doctor with Ace. And then basically, because I liked that, I was like, well, that wasn't too bad. That was quite easy to digest. Ace felt like a modern companion. The 7th Doctor felt like a modern Doctor. Like, surely it will be fine. So I ended up kind of dipping into different episodes. I think I by that point, obviously this is years on, this is after university and all that stuff. A friend of mine I worked with when I worked in the school I was in was like, oh, I love Pertwee, you should watch these. And I basically kind of accumulated everyone's favorite stuff and then ended up watching it that way, which is a really nice way, because you then have an in with someone you care about. So for example, my friend Nicole was like, I think you'll love Ace for these reasons. And I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. I love Ace for these reasons. But I also love that character because you love that character and you're my friend. So it kind of became a thing of falling in love with characters because my friends love these characters and I understood. Yeah. It was really interesting. Really.
That's a really nice way of putting it, because it's not something that I've really thought about before. But when I think about, because I've been binging Classic Who for the first time from the beginning, and the stories that stick out to me always seem to be also the stories where people have on Twitter have recommended them, and then we go on and have this chat about it afterwards. And it's almost like that's part of the episode. You get this like build up to the episode by chatting to someone, and then you watch the episode, it's incredible, and then you get to have this chat afterwards, which I've probably done with you a few times on Twitter, especially with a certain episode, which is The Chase. Of course, we'll get to it. We'll get
there. We haven't even got to the heart of the era yet.
No, definitely not. What I wanted to ask you about now is art. So, because you're very, very, very talented in very different areas. So you would describe yourself as an artist and a writer. Is that right?
Yes.
So the art, where did that come in, and where did the I assume, I mean, I'm going to ask you, whenabouts did you start with the art? Is it something that you've done since you were really young? And when did that sort of cross paths with Doctor Who?
I mean, I tried writing art when I was very young. I think all
Hmm.
kids that I've ever met have always wanted to draw.
Yeah.
I liked drawing. I liked it a lot, but probably not as much as everyone thinks I did. I liked drawing, but I loved writing. Like
Hmm.
I was mega into my writing. I mean, I was writing fan fiction in my French classes at secondary school. Whoops. But I was that kind of thing. I mean, I was
Were
massively
you, were you writing them in French?
no,
Because
no.
that would be Je suis un docteur.
Oh no, God.
That would be
Like,
impressive.
oh, what's the Bill Bailey like? Exterminez-vous. Oh God. Anyway, I love that sketch so much. Anyway, no, so I was really first and foremost a writer. So like some of my
Hmm.
first memories of really doing anything with art and were actually tied in with my writing. So I still have it somewhere in my house. I have a box of Star Wars stories I wrote about the Phantom, like a prelude to the Phantom Menace, and it's just Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan adventures because I was
Hmm.
obsessed with them, and they all had drawn front covers and then typed up writing. So I was always really into creating both, but the writing
Yeah.
came first and foremost. Um, they were terrible drawings, by the way. It wasn't like my parents went,
Oh,
"Oh,
I'm
you're a good
sure that's
artist,"
not
and kept. They,
true.
oh no, you don't want to see them. Um, but I liked drawing, but I kind of doodled a bit in like margins and things, usually like eyes and things, but that was kind of it. And then I became really good friends with my friend Becky, who I adore even now and I talk to a lot still. And they obviously had been given like how to draw manga books at one point growing up, and they were drawing these beautiful kind of anime characters in their margins and in notebooks, and
Yeah.
I was just like, I would just stare goggle-eyed like 12-year-old Sophie, just like, they're really good, how did you do that? So she lent me the books, and then I
Hmm.
remember copying them and then copying her. So like they would draw and then I would then copy.
Yeah.
I became really obsessive about it. And then with the art as well, because I loved animation and I was really into anime at that point, I was just obsessed with the idea of being within the animation industry. So
Yeah.
I went from 14-year-old Soph who couldn't draw to 18-year-old Soph who couldn't really draw, but somehow had enough of a portfolio for a university to go, oh, there's potential here, which I think is fair. I think they did think I had potential. Um, I I already knew loads about Photoshop and Flash in a way that most of my year group didn't, because my secondary school um, had very good kind of insight into digital media. So
Yeah.
they really pumped it up for, and they gave us I don't even know if they do it now, but we were like a guinea pig for that GCSE for digital art, which
Hmm.
which is why everything I do is digital because I only
Yeah.
really learned to do things digitally. Um, so I learned how to use Photoshop, how to use a Wacom tablet, all that stuff. Which this was 2008. It wasn't really as big a thing for students and teenagers to do.
Yeah. And
Now
I
it's
imagine
very
the
popular.
technology's come on quite a lot in
Oh,
that time as
oh
well.
God, yeah. God,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely. I mean, look at the iPad and the Apple Pencil. That would have been a dream to have back in
Yeah.
2008. Put it that way.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and I had really fortunate. My school that I went to, it wasn't a grammar, but it wanted to be, and I think it was trying very
Yeah.
hard to be. So it really pumped up its tech and really wanted to push forward. Like, no, we want to use Apple computers and we want to do this and we want to do
Hmm.
that. So I did studied media and art and IT and English lit for A level, um, and did like all of it.
Yeah.
um, got into my animation course and then discovered I didn't like making things move at all, to the point where I was so angry about it. I was so angry because I realized that animation completely stressed me out. Like the idea of
Hmm.
animation, I adored it. Like I in theory, it's a great medium to do if you understand how it works. But
Yeah.
animation isn't just about drawing, it's about understanding how a body moves, how
Yeah.
forces work, how folds will move on a drawing. And for me, I felt completely overwhelmed by it. It's trying to capture lightning in a bottle over a period of weeks, and you're
Yeah.
only doing a second or two.
Yeah. And I imagine as well that like the fact that you're drawing something that then has to move, that also restricts a little bit of creativity, and
Mm,
you have to draw it in a way that it can move,
mm,
even if
definitely.
it is detrimental to the way that it looks. So yeah,
Definitely. It was
it's
scary.
yeah.
It was really
Hmm.
scary. So, the way my university, I still work with them now actually, so it's a bit weird. 10 years on, I'm now their support assistant for their current animation course. So I love animation and I support animation dearly. But I could, if you'd asked me to animate something, I would cry in a corner somewhere. I just can't do it. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I'm a very strange person, but I still love to draw, and I still loved creating characters and worlds and writing and all that stuff, which obviously is obvious now.
Hmm.
um so when when we got to our third year, they still do it now, it's like a kind of final year project. So you would basically come up with an idea for a short film, pitch
Yeah.
it, create a Bible for it, like a kind of story Bible where you would have what happens, what the character designs looks like, and then you would make it to the best of your ability. Or if you weren't intending on animating, because basically you want to create a portfolio. That's all your final year of uni is, creating a portfolio in most creative aspects. So you don't have to make a final film, but our year group 10 years ago, that was very much the norm of like, no, you need to prove you can make a film, you need to prove you can direct, produce, animate, character design, all that stuff. And it was really scary to the point where
Yeah.
I
I
had an
can imagine.
idea and I loved my idea. I wrote a script for it, and I was told like, this is really good, and it was like one of the first times anyone had ever told me my writing was ever any good. But then I realized I had to animate it and had a bit of a nervous breakdown. So I didn't. And I went to
Yeah.
my tutors instead, crying my eyes out, going, can I do anything else but animate it? So it became a comic, it became a play, it became uh, monologues and blog posts and short pieces, and it became this little book
Wow.
of basically kind of pre-production ideas.
Hmm.
And I got to one, so that was good. I
That is
passed,
good.
considering
Yeah.
I didn't animate, so I was well chuffed. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it kind of led me on that's what I'd like to do. But unfortunately, getting into animation is really hard anyway, without being an animator.
Hmm.
As I wasn't an animator, my only route in would have been to become a production assistant or a producer role, which again is also very difficult to get into
Yeah, of course.
without certain, contacts and things. So um, I was like, oh, so I spent a few years kind of doing lots of different jobs, retail, etc., office work. Then I worked for an animation company for a little while as well. And I worked at a school for 3 years as a TA and then an unqualified teacher to support a
Hmm.
pupil referral unit. So I did loads of different things, and I kind of swore off creativity for a very long time, which is kind of odd when I think about
No,
my
no,
life
I
now.
completely get
But
that. I mean, I've
considering,
sort of had the exact same thing. With like I was always quite creative at school, and I always wanted to do something creative. And then after education, I was
mm,
sort of in this nowhere zone, like in terms of work. Like I've just gone from like normal job to normal job, and
mm,
that's essentially why I've started the podcast, is just to have a place to channel some creativity. So yeah,
mm,
no, I do get that a lot.
yeah,
Um,
it was 7 years, I think. Really, in
mhm.
total, it was about 7 years. And in that time, so to the backtrack slightly, my husband Jamie and I met at uni. So he was on our course, and he wanted to be a storyboard artist. So storyboard artists, they they kind of set the blueprint for a script. So
Hmm.
just to obviously just in case you don't know, those listening. So basically, the idea would be if I wrote a script for something, um, in an animation form, uh, most likely Jamie would be the first person to get it after a director, and his job would then be to translate that script into a board, which then the
Hmm.
director will go over and go, oh, I don't like this shot, or that character needs to stand here, or does this work for the story? I'm not sure. Maybe we'll cut that scene out, etc. So a storyboarder is like an editor, but also a drawer, and also a story person. So they're kind of doing quite a lot. I think people
Yeah.
do as much as they do, but they do a hell of a lot to get the story to work before it even gets taken to animation stage. Um, and It was much easier for him to get into the industry than it was for me because he had the drawing ability, he had experience at animation companies. So I spent those 7 years going, well, I'm supporting you. So it like let's get you in there. Let's get you doing what
Yeah.
you need to do. So again, 7 years pass. Um, I still love Doctor Who very much, and it does relate to your question. I start doodling again.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm still doing the writing with my friends, but it's very kind of I'm enjoying it, but I want to do more. Like I get this sense
Yeah.
of, oh, I want to do more, and then I do some doodles for my friends, and they like them, and I start realizing I want to make more friends who like Doctor Who that don't live in America because all
Hmm.
of my friends at that point I'm friends with on Messenger or Skype, and they all live hundreds of miles away, and I'm like, this isn't fair. I want to have more friends that I can see face to face really often and stuff.
Yeah.
And That's when I joined Twitter. So I joined Twitter in 2016. Um, Nothing really happened for quite a while, to be honest. It was just mostly me talking about toast, probably. Um, and then uh, I think it was I started doing a few doodles and things because I got into the Capaldi era quite deeply as well after
Hmm.
discovering classic Who. I don't know what it was about the Capaldi era necessarily. Like I can't pinpoint it. I love Capaldi's Doctor, but I feel like some of the stories are really hit and miss. And I think that
Yeah.
comes across quite a lot. But even in saying that, I was just a completely and utterly devoted Capaldi fan in the sense that I loved all of his episodes. I couldn't wait for more. And I was
Yeah.
then watching the classic stuff at the same time, and I was just like really in it. I was really in that moment. And uh, I started just doodling a bit more and writing a bit more and sharing it a
Hmm.
bit. And I didn't, again, nothing really happened. I think I had 400, maybe 300 followers, something like that, which was mostly people I knew from animation anyway,
Yeah.
who were friends of Jamie and knew me through that. Um, and then I was still working at the school, and Jamie and I had just got married, and my nan passed away, which was absolutely gutting. My nan
Hmm.
was like my biggest supporter in sense of just being creative. Like out of all of my family, like the way I describe my family, it sounds really bad. It's not. My family are like Only Fools and Horses meets Matilda. So
Yeah.
uh, my family didn't really get me, but they were
Hmm.
supportive anyway, but they just didn't
Yeah.
get me. So I'd be the kid reading a book in the corner, and they'd be watching, I don't know, some really odd action movie that really wasn't very fun or entertaining. And they'd be like, oh, why are you joining in? And I'm like, because I'm reading. Like, I want to read this. But they'd be
Hmm.
like, well, okay. And then they go back to watching their film because
Yeah.
they'd be
No,
like, well, that's fine.
yeah, I think a lot of people will relate to that. Being
Yeah.
the not necessarily the black sheep of the family or anything, but just being
Certainly the odd one out in a
yeah, that's slightly different. I think
mm,
I had that, though I always fit in and I love my family and they're great. They're really supportive. Like no one else was into like Doctor Who or
mm,
sci-fi or all this other nerdy stuff that I was into. So yeah, I
mm.
think a lot of people are like that.
Mm.
especially a lot of Doctor Who fans.
Hmm. But my nan was the only one who was just like, she wasn't into Doctor. Well, actually, to be fair, before she passed away, I never really discussed Doctor Who with her. We were far more into like Harry Potter and stuff by that point. But
Yeah.
we were really into like myths and legends. My nan, interestingly, was an atheist becoming religious. Like she was religious, then she became an atheist, then she found her religion again. So she had this weird kind of relationship with religion, just generally.
Hmm.
And so she had like books all on mythology and everything else in her house. And I used to, as a kid, I used to just like I just wanted to know everything about these myths because they still really interesting stories. Again, I love storytelling. So that's kind of where that came from. But when she died, and I was working at the school at the time, and I just sat there and went, you know what, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. Like it kind of really put my life in perspective of like my nan spent years working as a babysitter and working, she she had a very interesting life. She worked at Eton College as a boys maid, so her job
Right.
was just sewing up like boys clothes and tidying them after them at Eton College of all places. um
Yeah.
and she loved it there. She said the boys were lovely. She said genuinely, most of those boys were there because their parents had nowhere else to put them. That that's where they were always intended to go because they probably had model mothers and professor
Hmm.
fathers. That's how she used to describe it to us anyway. They were always really pretty young boys who just probably had absolutely no love in their lives whatsoever and would be just dumped in this boarding school at the age of 11 and just expected to get on with it. And
Hmm.
a lot of them would just sob their first nights and stuff like that. And, you
Yeah.
know, find it really hard. So, um, yeah, it was a bit odd. But my nan was massively creative in her spare time. She used to tell stories to the kids she used to babysit for, and she used to draw for them. And she used to teach them all to play chess and all these really lovely things.
Yeah.
And she traveled the world, and she traveled the world on her own. I think she went to Australia all on her own when I was a kid, and we were
Wow.
terrified she was going to get eaten by a crocodile. Like, I think my brother and I were like, "You must phone us. You must phone us and tell us." She did so much on her
Yeah.
own, and like as she got older, she would do people's ironing to make enough money to go all the way to the Philippines to work as like a Christian supporter to build schools and things in her
Wow.
70s. No, yeah, 70s. Amazing woman, absolutely amazing. If I was an inch this woman, I'd be so pleased.
I was gonna
Um,
say, like, she sounds incredible.
yeah, I need to write a book about her at
Absolutely
some point.
incredible.
She's
You
amazing.
should.
Yeah, well,
You really should.
yeah, she's amazing. I love my nan. I miss her. But she,
Yeah.
when she died, I just went, you know what? Screw this. I'm not going to spend my life the way my nan did, in the sense of she didn't think she was any good at anything.
Hmm.
She thought that her drawings were a bit silly and her art was, she could oil paint. I can't even imagine oil painting. Like I don't like where to
Yeah.
start. But she could do that, and she was just like, "Oh no, I won't do it today. It'll make my flat untidy." I'm like,
Oh,
man, come on, come on.
what?
She was that kind of person of like, oh, she could do these things, but she had other like priorities, which is fine. But then I kind of sat there
Hmm.
going, well, she did what made her happy, and at the moment, working at this school isn't making me happy, and I wanted to really try and get into the creative industry. So I left. I think my school thought I was absolutely mental. They just went, "What are
Yeah.
you doing?" I was like, "Nope, sorry, that you want me to stay here and learn IT so I can be your IT teacher. I'm not doing it." So I left. Um and I was originally going to try and be a runner, but I had to learn to drive. And then Jamie got a job in Cardiff. We were living close to London by this point because the
Hmm.
work is either London, Bristol, or Manchester. So we were
Yeah.
closer to London. We were on the outskirts of the Metropolitan Line tube, just to be able
Hmm.
to afford for him to go to London. And a long story short is that we got to Cardiff. Well, actually, he got to Cardiff first, and I spent 4 months without him. I tried to learn to drive. I finally succeeded. Then I was offered a job working in Cardiff at an animation company. as
Yeah.
a production assistant. And I was just like, this is it. This is my moment. Like this is gonna be great. And I hated every second of it, and they made me feel like crap. Um, it was the worst job I have ever had, and it was because I basically was bullied.
That's
uh,
horrible.
yeah, it was awful. I because I yeah, it was an awful job, but I had my own desk, which I could put my Doctor Who figurines on and my own Doctor Who like screen, and I could listen to audios all day. And that is
Hmm.
how I discovered Big Finish, and that is how I discovered the Hartnell era, because my friend, who, as I said earlier, discovering things through people that we love and care about, was like, "Have you not watched it yet? Because I think you'd like it." And I was sat there going,
Hmm.
I'm not really sure I'm going to enjoy black and white Doctor Who. I think it might be a bit too slow for me. It's not really my thing. I say
Yeah.
now is what I said about 4 years ago. And they were like, well, try it. Maybe try the audios first, because if you like the audios, maybe you'll feel differently.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's an interesting thought. So I'd seen by that point I'd seen uh, Adventure in Space and Time, which I loved. I
Hmm.
liked it, but again, I liked it because it was the history of Doctor Who, not specifically because it was that story. I just liked it
Yeah, of
because,
course.
and I think, all that stuff. And then I watched it. No, I listened to um the Rocket Men audio. So I'd already listened to some Big Finish. I'd listened to Light at the End. That was quite
Yeah.
good. Quite hard to get your head around if you don't know all the doctors, but it was
Hmm.
quite good. I listened to some of the unit audios with Kate Stewart and Osgood, and I really liked those. So my friend was like, "No, listen to this one," and I was like, "Why am I listening to this?" She's like, "I know you. You're going to like these characters. Trust
Yeah.
me on this. Listen to this audio." Um, Kind of a bit obsessed with Ian and Barbara now.
Yeah.
A little bit.
If anyone who follows you on Twitter knows that you're obsessed with Ian and
A
Barbara, so it's
little bit.
fine. But
Yeah.
why would you not be obsessed with Ian and Barbara?
I mean, they're great. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I know Kieran already asked, like, what are your thoughts on the first companions, Ian
Yeah,
and Barbara?
we'll get to that. Yeah. We'll
They're
definitely
so
get to
good.
that.
They're so good. But yeah, that's kind of how that happened, and um, because of that love for them, I don't know, I drew a little bit more. I discovered a few people in Cardiff. I became really good friends with people who were Doctor Who fans. Um, but I don't think anything really kind of hit or clicked with art or anything else until the Doctor Who on Twitch summer of
Yeah.
2018. And that for me is where everything changed. I I was working in a call center because I needed a job after the animation one. Um, and luckily it meant that it was all inbound calls. And so I worked for a glass company. So if you had glass smashed or anything like that to do with your car, I'd be your first port of call. But that meant that when the
Hmm.
phones weren't busy, I could just sit and doodle all day. So I'd just sit
Hmm.
there at my desk, and I never had the opportunity to draw as much as I did then. Like it's
Hmm.
so I just doodle, and then they announced Doctor Who on Twitch. And I remember being very skeptical because I was like, look, I like Ian and Barbara, but are 16-year-olds who watch Twitch going to sit down and watch
Watch.
Hartnell area?
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely didn't think it would work. But some crazy fool made that trailer an absolute meme. And it just made everyone want to watch those
Yeah.
clips. And it just meant that, the one with the white hair and he knows, and all those memes that came out of that initial trailer for the first Doctor era meant that the 16-year-olds were like, what is this? Well, I say just generally 16, but the younger audience, a younger generation
Hmm.
of fans were suddenly like, oh, hang on, this looks quite funny. This looks quite silly. Like, let's give it a watch. And then they were drawn in. And
Hmm.
I will say it till I'm blue in the face. Unearthly Child, regardless of what you think of the rest of the 3 episodes, is a great way to begin a pilot for a
Oh,
series.
yeah, me. We spoke about this in episode one a little bit. Yeah, that first part. of an unearthly child. I rewatched it the other day. I rewatched it on Doctor Who Day,
Yeah.
just as a little treat for myself.
Good.
What a beginning! What a start!
So
What
many
more do you want?
questions,
It's
so many
so
answers.
mysterious.
It's great.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do? We'll take a little break there, and when we come back, we're gonna slide on over to the shelf.
Oh God.
And take a look at the DVD collection. Hello, welcome back. I hope you all had a lovely break, even though you've been nowhere. We needed a drink. So we're going to go straight in and slide over to the shelf and have a little look at what Sophie would like to submit to the DVD collection.
By the power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I'll prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
Well, my submission to the DVD collection is The Rescue.
Oh, so Hartnell era. Vicky's first story?
Vicky's first story.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
That's an interesting pick. Very interesting pick.
It is probably one of my favourite ever Hartnell episodes. It is also short, which means that those who do not know the Hartnell era do not need to sit through 6 episodes of the Daleks to appreciate the Hartnell era.
Yeah.
It's really a mystery. It's not quite a straightforward Doctor Who episode, and yet it is the first time I feel that Hartnell's Doctor feels like a more modern Doctor.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Also, you have Ian and Barbara being adorable. Coquillian is actually terrifying. And no spoilers, but it has a great reveal. It's just a really good little story, and I think it deserves to be in the DVD collection because it's probably not people's first thought, but there are quite a few people that when I've mentioned The Rescue, have gone, "Oh, that's a brilliant story," and I've gone, "Yeah, it is a brilliant story." I don't know why it doesn't get more love than, like, I love The Chase, and I know I love The Chase, and I'm sure people are like, "Why haven't you put in The Chase?" It's not that I don't want to; it deserves to be in there. However, if we're thinking realistically here, The Rescue is the better story. And I feel like it does more justice to those particular characters.
Yeah.
I mean, I could pick loads. They're honestly, Doctor Who has a plethora of wonderful episodes that all need to be in there. But I could have picked the Aztecs. I could have picked all sorts of episodes. But I know there are other people who are going to pick those episodes. I'm not afraid that they won't be in there eventually.
They will,
The Rescue,
I'm sure.
However, probably won't get as much of a limelight as some of those other more popular episodes. And I think The Rescue deserves to be in there. And I love it. And I also
it's great. And it's in. It will get that recognition now. Good. Because it is locked in. It's on the shelf. It's there. It's alongside Thin Ice and the God Complex on the shelf. It's a two-parter, isn't it?
It is a two-parter.
If I remember rightly. Yeah, it's probably one of those. Is it the first two-parter? I'm trying to remember now.
So
is it not?
The Edge of Destruction is the
yes,
and that one also deserves to be in the collection.
Yeah,
for the reason of that it was written really quickly and is only in one set, and yet is the maddest thing you've ever seen,
isn't it?
I love it.
It is great. So what were there any others that got close? Because I know you mentioned the Aztecs and.
I mean, You know what? I actually genuinely think of The Rescue or The Unearthly Child first,
Hmm.
and I think they just belong on the shelf. They just belong.
Yeah,
I feel like Hartnell's era has so much experimentation and potential,
yeah,
but it would be sad if they're not in the collection somewhere.
yeah,
Particularly when they don't know what the show is at that point. They're just doing a 30-minute segment every week, experimenting with where they can go with these characters, and oh, let's throw in some history this week, and oh, let's throw in some
yeah.
science this week. Like they're not looking for a 50-year program. Like,
Hmm.
you know, what we're getting at the moment and what we've had previously is very much a they know what it is. There's this massive legacy.
Yeah, it's a
They didn't
product
have
of its
that.
own history, isn't it, really?
They just knew
Um,
they had a popular TV show on their hands, and they were like, well, let's make it more fun for kids, and let's do this and let's
yeah.
do that, and that's all they
That
had.
when I started watching Hartnell's era for the first time, it it struck me how much it still feels like Doctor Who, like quintessential Doctor Who, which is a phrase that's come up in every single episode so far,
Mm.
and I'm sure it will continue. But um, how much it feels like quintessential Doctor Who, despite the fact that half of the things that you would immediately jump to when you're talking about Doctor Who, you're talking like Gallifrey, Time Lords, or all of this lore. It doesn't even
Mm.
exist yet. It's barely even a thought in anyone's head.
Mm.
And it still has just that vibe around it. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't think
Mm.
anyone could ever put their finger on it. But you just that I was worried that it wouldn't feel like Doctor Who when I watched it, because it is so different. But
Mm.
there's just a feeling that runs through every single episode up until the Timeless Children that I still get, and it just links everything together in a nice little package. So
Yeah,
yeah, I like that.
that's very
I like
cool.
that a lot. It's great to have Hartnell on the shelf. I'm loving it. I'm loving having Hartnell here. So what we will do now is we're about to hear David Tennant's dulcet tones from Broadchurch as we head over to bloody Twitter.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
So first of all, we've got one from a friend of the show at Jamie_season7 has asked. Obviously, we've covered this a little bit already, but are there any specific episodes that made you fall in love with the show?
I mean, The Waters of Mars is up there just because it was my first one, and it makes me shiver when I think about it. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
I really love Terror of the Autons. I love the Aztecs. I love the Romans as well. The Romans.
The Romans is a
such
great
good
story.
episode. It's
It's
so good.
so fun. It's so fun, and I think it might be my favorite Hartnell performance. He's
proper loving
he's
it.
hilarious in that story.
I'm trying to think if there's any others. I mean, I love Heaven Sent as well. I love the War Games. I love Robot. There's something really sweet about Tom Baker's first
Robot's
episode.
great,
It's just
yeah.
like, what's going on? I love the Macroterra. I particularly love how well put together that as an animated series, a story it is.
Mhm.
There's just so much. I can't really pin down. It's like Josh was saying about quintessential Who. Like, I love Doctor Who so much. There's very few episodes that I wouldn't go back and rewatch. There are very few
Yeah.
episodes that I don't enjoy. Like, I always take something from an episode, even if I don't enjoy it as much as the
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And that's one of the joys of Doctor Who. How often can you say that about something that's run for so long, that there's still something Who about, a show?
Yeah, I think again, like, I think Tom Vance touched on this slightly. This idea that I mean, to be a Doctor Who fan is to understand that there's a lot of bad in Doctor Who, a lot of naff, and there's a lot of stuff where it's okay to say this is objectively pretty bad, but God, I enjoy it. And I love watching it. So there's loads of different stories like that. Another question from at Crinoid Roots. They've asked, how did you find your passion for drawing? Again, we've touched on this a little bit already.
Yeah, I think it was just copying my friend and then realizing that people made a living out of drawing, and then realizing how much I loved animation and just loving to create. And my nan obviously was a big thing because she used to draw. She used to do one of my favorite memories was when I was was I 11? I must have been 11 or 12 when Lord of the Rings came out. And she drew a Gandalf for me, and it was all in one line. So she never took her pen off the paper, and she would just
really cool.
create it with like this like really scribbly kind of effect. I don't know if I still have it now, which makes me very sad to think about. But she drew this beautiful Gandalf, and then she did the same with Yoda. And they were just really, really cool drawings. And I just
a little
bit
easy with Yoda. I would have gone in with Yoda. Yeah, half the size.
Yeah.
Don't go for the tallest person.
I think she only did his face, to be fair, but even so, it's very cool.
I was going to say a full body that'd take a while.
I think my passion for drawing, specifically since I've been discovered on Twitter, has to be down to Twitch. It has to be down to just everyone liking what I'm doing, and it's kind of given me a new confidence in what happened to like what I was doing. So for example, like when they started showing Unearthly Child and stuff on Twitch, despite my skepticism, I was like, well, I'll do some drawing for it. So I drew some really bad pictures. I drew some pictures, I put them on Twitter, and because I was using the hashtag Doctor Who on Twitch and Unearthly Child and Doctor Who, people found them and they liked them, and then they followed me, and then I continued doing it throughout the entire thing. So 8 weeks of almost continual drawing meant that by the end of it, I was a much better drawer.
Yeah.
I had more people wanting more of my work, and it gave me the confidence to go, well, maybe people might buy this. And I went to a convention. My first convention was in 2018. I think it was, I want to say just before or just after the Twitch stream. Maybe it was just after, or maybe during. My memory of that time is so mad and so merged. But it was that. It was definitely that year that I went to an event, and I'd created these little Doctor Who pin badges, and one of them had not the mind probe on them. I still have a version of that, but it was a different version then. I made these little badges, and they were 50p. I wasn't expecting to make any real money from them. I was hoping that people would like them. And this woman came up with her son, and she was just like, I have to buy this. So I remember this from when I was a kid, and she bought this Mind Probe badge. It was my first ever sale, and I cried at my table at this convention. Nice. And then Colin Baker came over, looked at all my drawings and was like, I quite like these, because I think obviously Jodie had only recently been announced at that point, and I'd drawn a postcard of Jodie wearing the 12th Doctor's velvet coat, because at the time we didn't know what he regenerated in.
Yeah.
In the snow, because I thought it was going to be in the snow on Mondas or wherever Twice Upon a Time took place. So I drew this, like, I think I still have it somewhere in here somewhere. And it just had oh well, here I go again drawn on it. And Colin liked it so much as a postcard, he said, I want this one. And we got a photo with it, and it was great. And
that
it kind of made
amazing.
it made me feel like, oh, people like this, and if Colin Baker likes it, then surely others would. So
if it's good enough for Colin, it's good enough for everybody else.
Yeah, so I ended up just drawing a lot, and I think it just completely took off. I never in my wildest dreams, if you'd have told me back at uni that, oh, you know those drawings you like doing? Yeah, people will buy those and people will like share them, and Doctor Who people will see them and own them and put them in their house. And I'm like, you're joking. Like, nope, they will. They'll like them.
Yeah.
William Russell will wear a pin that you have made, and I'll be like, who's William Russell? Because it's too early. But yeah, it's that thing of like, what? Russell T Davies has a Slovene pin that I made because someone gave
incredible.
it to him. Oh, hang on, I've got it here. Where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it? Just to show you. I know you're on video, guys, so we're on video and you're not, but
yeah. No, it's beautiful. That is a great little pin.
So yeah.
And these people who
like helped form this obsession that I have, own things that I've created, and that's mad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm literally looking up now at a piece of your artwork on my shelf. Yeah.
But
it's right there. Like your little Tom Baker artwork. It's like main feature on my shelf. It's great.
But that's mad. If like I still cannot even now kind of get my head around it. If I know people will do it, and I obviously am trying to make money and all that stuff, and it is part of like my income, but also part of my brain just goes WTF all the time. Like some like I have 100 followers on Twitch after the charity stream that I did. I have over 100 followers now, and they all tune in on a Sunday and a Wednesday to watch me doodle. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to draw half the time, and then 7 people turn up to watch me draw, and I'm like, okay, pressure.
That's
mad.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
so
I'm going through not on the same scale. I mean, if William Russell wants to listen to this, he's welcome to. But like the idea that obviously I'm first episode is out as we're recording this, and I'm slowly closing in on 100 listens, which is mental to me on a 2-hour podcast that has absolutely zero production value whatsoever. I'm amazed, and just the idea of like you probably get this with your art being on people's walls, like my voice being in people's houses and coming out of people's speakers is a strange feeling.
It is odd. Yes, it's very odd.
But yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna speed run some questions at you. I like speed running.
Okay.
Let's give you a few. Is there anything this is from Connor J. Adkins on Twitter? Is there anything that you haven't drawn or written about yet that you would love to draw or write about?
This isn't a speed run. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
This one is.
Take as much time.
I want to do more original stuff. I want to create more original fiction. I loved being involved with Big Finish, and I fingers crossed will continue to do so. But because I've got the Benny thing coming out at Christmas and stuff like that, so it's not without a want of trying. I do want to do more of that, but I also want to create original content that people will buy, because there's something very different about creating something original that people like and creating fan art that people like. Okay, you've already got an attachment to Jacqueline Hill or William Russell or whatever. You are going to buy that drawing. But if I created a character that then you liked just as much, that would mean the world to me.
The world, of course.
So I am writing novels and planning things, and hopefully in the future you'll see them. And I really, really, really hope that people will want to purchase them.
I have no doubt in my mind that people will. Of course they will. Yeah.
So, to be honest, I have covered quite a lot of things I wanted to draw Doctor Who wise, but it's wanting to get across moments in the stories that I love. So probably story based moments. It's probably what I'd like to draw more, like more gestures, more poses, more in the moment drawings, not just gestures or poses. It's probably the best way to describe what I would like to do with the Doctor Who stuff.
Yeah, no, that sounds very exciting. We all want to see it. The next question is from Lily May Sherritt, who is at Irene Wildtime on Twitter. they've asked, if you could travel with any Doctor, who would you travel with? And they have said companion. I probably know already.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, we all know.
I mean, again, it's difficult. If I was traveling with the first Doctor, Ian and Barbara, also maybe Vicky/Susan, depending, that would be great, because I wouldn't have to worry if the Doctor was annoyed with me for whatever reason, because Ian and Barbara would be there to back me up, probably.
Yeah.
So it's fine. If it wasn't the first Doctor, it'd probably be the 12th Doctor, but specifically during Series 10, because by then his demeanor's soothed a bit, and I feel like I'd get on really well with Bill and Nardole. So I'd probably want to travel with them, but also second Doctor, Victoria and Jamie and me.
Oh, that would be the best.
There's just too many. There's just too many choices. I want to meet Tom Baker's Doctor. I want to meet John Pertwee's. Like, there's just too many. I'd love to hang out with Colin. Like the sixth Doctor, Big Finish style, hanging out, going to get his favorite Chinese with Evelyn would be absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much. Seventh Doctor and Ace. How could you deny even that choice? I want to chill out with Seventh Doctor and Ace. It's like that moment.
We're gonna settle on everybody.
Everyone.
All
I
at
just
once.
choose all of them all at once. 8th Doctor, 9th Doctor, 10th Doctor, you name it. I want to travel with you all. That's the joy of the Doctor Who fan, though.
It is definitely. Another friend of mine from Twitter, James Morgan Belcher at @A_common_James has asked, what kind of Doctor would you be?
I would probably be a mad mix of. I'd probably be kind of like a soft Matt Smith. That's really soft.
Yeah.
You know, like how babyish he is in like 11th Hour.
Yeah.
Like his softer version of Matt Smith is probably me. I feel like I am, and maybe like kind of Jodie-ish. I'm very much for looking at the beauty of stuff and just wanting to just have fun and explore things and experience things. But also, I can imagine I could also get quite grumpy depending on what I find. So maybe
well, early Matt's got a bit of that. Early Matt's got a bit of grumpiness, and
like the Beast Below is probably a good example of that. Like the whole,
great story.
I'd be very upset if I saw a kid crying. I'd have to go sort it out. Like I don't. I guess that's probably. I would like to think that I would try my best to help everyone that I see. But being a doctor, just I've done D&Ds where I've played the Doctor, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what anyone says. Improvising as the Doctor on the spot, like writing the Doctor, you can spend all day thinking about how you're going to respond to a moment. But actually being, if you were a Doctor Who in that moment, knowing that people's lives are at risk, or you might be the only person to prevent Earth from spinning out of its axis or whatever, all those things.
Yeah.
It's mad. Like, there's no one like the Doctor. And I think that's why he's such an they are such an interesting character.
Yeah.
So definitely. I think kindness is just the thing that I take from it. I would come across as a kind version of the Doctor.
Exactly. Spot on. I think that's all any of us could hope for if we were the Doctor. But I would definitely be out of my depth. Way out of my depth. Rose Marie Drabble at Scripty Rose on Twitter has asked, which character do you enjoy drawing the most?
Oh, tough one. I think the 12th Doctor is really fun to draw because he's just points and then a curly head of hair. So he's the most fun to draw and probably the one I've been drawing the most because I started really doodling when I got into the Capaldi era. So
a lot of variation on outfits as well.
Yes, definitely a lot of variation on that. I'm really keen on his Series 9 look. Like his Series 9 look where he just looks like a space hobo, very similar to the second Doctor in that sense. Like, amuses me every time. But I also really like his, no one talks about this look as much as they should, but the look he has in The Return of Dr. Mysterio, where he's gone to see I've forgotten his name now. the ghost, the ghost's actual name, I forget.
Oh,
When
yeah,
the
yeah,
ghost
yeah.
of Ball, and he's wearing his red velvet coat with a black hoodie.
Oh,
He looks
I don't remember
awesome.
this.
It's
Yeah,
like
I don't
it's for
remember
like
this.
2 minutes, and I'm sat there going, "Look, we have been completely robbed that we don't see this variation again.
Yeah,
We never
because the
see
red, yeah, the red velvet for me. I
Red
think I did a
velvet.
tweet about this a little while ago. It's just always put the Doctor in red. The Doctor just always looks great in red.
Also,
Pertwee looks great in red. Tom looks great in red.
my favorite other Capaldi look is when he's wearing that kind of Jackson Pollock jumper
Yeah, I
during
like that one.
what's it called now? The one written by Rona Munro, and I've forgotten the name of it, and it's so bad because
Eaters
I
of the
love Rona
Light.
Munro.
Eaters
Yes,
of the Light.
that
Yeah,
look is just again absolutely spot on.
yeah. It's a great look. Harry George Andrew Mills. I've got to do this Twitter name now, haven't I? At Harry MI 820300317. Thanks for the easy name there, Harry. Cheers. Now he's asked, because at the time of recording, this isn't out yet. He's asked, "Are you excited for the Revolution of the Daleks trailer on Sunday?" Because it's not really going to make sense by the time this comes out. Are you excited for Revolution of the Daleks?
I am. I'm nervous.
I'm nervous.
I wasn't the biggest Timeless Child or Children fan.
Mhm.
Not because I didn't like the premise. I just found that the answers supplied felt like they could be quite easily dismissed. Like,
Okay.
story-wise, the Master's never a reliable source for any information, and the
Yeah.
Matrix isn't a reliable source for information, because those things
Yeah,
can be
it's not, is
easily.
it?
So in my head, I'm like, what stops another showrunner from completely rewriting it all? Which, again,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that they should, but what I'm saying is, if you're going to create something as definitive as this, you
Yeah,
need to
you
give
wanna-
more answers. And this is
Yeah, you
something I
need to
spoke
solidify
about.
it in. Yeah.
This is something I spoke about with the Sons of Radio Free Skaro guys for their commentary for Ascension of the Cybermen, which comes out very soon. You should listen to that as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did a commentary with them about that episode, so we watched it and we talked about it, and I was basically saying, like, I don't like this episode, and it's because I love Brendan, and I love the concept of when we're first watching the episode going, what is Brendan, and what's going on an island, and what's happening, and who's these guys, and what's happening? And it's just answered, oh, it's just a trick in the Matrix. And I felt completely robbed by that story.
Yeah.
And I think I spend a lot of my time, particularly at the moment with Doctor Who, feeling like you set me up for something I'm not, like, you set me up for a fall. I'm not set up to be excited by anything. I just feel like all this setup excites me at the time, and then the actual conclusion isn't as good as it could have been for me.
Yeah.
And again, with Doctor Who stuff, I will say this every time. It's my opinion. It's not meant to, like, attack Jodie or anything. I like Doctor Who and I love it desperately, but there are occasions where I'll sit there and I go, I didn't really enjoy that, and that makes me feel sad. But that's why I always look forward. So I am nervous about Revolution of the Daleks because I want it to turn out well. I don't, with us talking today, the SFX magazine has released information that hasn't been quite confirmed, but is possibly confirmed about Ryan and Graham. Now, I hope they go in a positive way and not just killed off. I hope if someone is killed off, that the other one is someone who can come back and be a recurring character, because that would make sense.
Yeah,
stuff like
agree,
that.
yeah.
I particularly, let's say as an example, they killed Ryan off, as an example, then we'd want to see Bradley Walsh again and make sure that he's doing all right, because character-wise, the Doctor would want to check on, you know, someone who's lost their grandson and their wife in a very short space of time. Like,
Yeah,
but I don't know if they're going to play it like that, because I know with time schedules and how things are written and how things are created, that's not always the case, which is why people just get killed off, because then we don't have to worry about them anymore. But I also don't want to be killed off.
Yeah, no, I'm a little bit, because I feel like either one. Obviously, I think it's pretty set in stone now that we know that Yaz is safe. Yaz is in series 13. It's going to be fine. So if they're going to leave, it's going to be one of those two, and I feel like either of them being killed off would leave a sour taste. If it was both, it just feels a little bit too much of a sucker punch. Dependent on how it's handled. If it's Graham that gets killed off, you know, why would Ryan then leave the TARDIS? What is his reasons for going back home and staying in Sheffield? And if Ryan dies, just the idea of Graham's run being bookended by, you know, the death of his wife and that being a major plot point, and we go through all of this development and then it gets bookended by another death. Again, it's a bit of a sucker punch. So yeah, I hope that they leave in a positive way as well. I mean,
if they're going to do something out there, they should, you know, have Graham and Ryan leave. Like, look, this was too much for us. We need to go. And then something has happened to Yaz that makes her kind of not. I don't know, like maybe she's been blackmailed by an alien to watch over the Doctor and report back, or in a kind of like a Turlo way, or you know, do something really interesting that surprises us. Because if we're knowing Yaz is staying, then do something cool, like you know. But again, I feel sorry for the team trying to manage all the spoilers and everything, because it's so hard. A fandom that we are constantly requiring content. Like, I don't know any fandom like ours. Like, I know Harry Potter was a bit intense at one point, but to be honest, even when you were in the Harry Potter fandom, it was nowhere near as bad as how we are about spoilers or about getting content, demanding mad, content. And yet we're one of the few fandoms that actually gets content created constantly for us. Yes, it's not always current. I mean, I have to admit, I do feel sorry for Jodie in the sense that this year feels like she hasn't had a lot, but she would have done, because it would have been exactly the same amount of stuff. It just feels worse because we're all feeling it at the moment, and it doesn't feel like even Series 12 aired this year.
Yeah, it feels like it was years ago.
Yeah.
Years and years ago. It's a lot has happened since then, definitely. Just one more question before we move on, from protagonist Ivy on Twitter. They have asked, when drawing, do you typically mess around with different poses or outfits, or do you find yourself jumping right in and you have an idea straight away?
I tend to. I'm on the fly. I'm like a drawing improviser. I'll draw a circle and I'll be like, I wonder whose face this is. And then I'll be like, oh, this looks more like an Ian face. Let's go with it. And then it'll be like, oh, I wonder what costume I'll put them in.
That's interesting.
I'm a bit odd like that. I only plan if, say, for example, I'm on Twitch, and so I'll be like, right, what do you guys want to see today? And if people have said they want monsters, then I'll have to go and look at monsters. So that's kind of, you know, how my planning works. I do use a lot of reference, because reference is king. You know, if I need to draw a sea devil, I'll go look at a sea devil. I'm not that good at recalling images. My memory is pretty terrible at the best of times. So I'll always have a picture of what I'm planning to draw. It won't always necessarily look like what I'm drawing, but you know, I had a really interesting moment actually the other day where I drew, I don't know if you saw it, perhaps maybe some of you have, I drew Susan with the 13th Doctor, but it was like an older Time War Susan with 13. Now,
Lovely picture.
that picture was going to be very different because in my head, I'd pictured the 13th Doctor being kissed on the forehead by Susan. That is kind of very sweet, kind of, don't worry, it's fine, I'm fine sort of thing. However, me trying to draw that pose was like getting blood from a stone. I hated every second of it. I brought up pictures. I was like, I can't get this right. I can't do it. And I had people in the chat going, don't stress. It's fine. Do what you want. And I was like, this is the first time I've ever got that stressed out about drawing live. For anyone ever. Where normally I just leave it and I go do something else. But I was drawing live. So I went, you know what? I'll try a different pose. So then I found a pose, like a hugging pose, that I was like, oh no, that's good. I'll use that one. And then I, riffed off using that image, that gesture, and it worked, and it worked out really well. But it does happen. Like what I have up here doesn't always translate to what I draw, which is why I know so many artists that will post something, and I'll be like, this is amazing. Like I love this image, and they'll be like, no, it's all right. It's because what they have up here is not what they wanted on the page, no matter how hard they've worked on it. Because every piece of artwork technically could just continue growing. Yeah. Just continue playing with it forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. You have to stop at some point. And I think forcing an artist to stop and not scrap it and start again is one of the hardest things emotionally to do.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah.
The same with writing. You can continue working on the draft forever and ever. Doesn't mean it's going to be any better than it was when you did. You might add a few more words in, but is that going to make the story any better or worse? Like, I think it's quite a complicated thing.
Yeah, of course. And then, I said, last question that we've got here is from Kieran. Very sad. Kieran Hyman. The 66 Ramblers on Twitter has said, what are your thoughts on the first Doctor's companions, Ian and Barbara?
Right. And this essay, I will. No, how long have we got? No, honestly, there's something. So I'm going to preface this by saying that I have always loved those type of characters. Teacher characters have always been a thing for me. I blame Harry Potter entirely for it because Remus Lupin was like my favorite character ever for a very long time. Yeah. And obviously he is a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher for a long time. I worked with teachers. I just like teacher characters. I think reading Harry Potter at a young age and realizing that teachers were human, and because of the way they've written Remus Lupin in particular, you saw this like human aspect, ironically, a human aspect of this man who was teaching you. I was like, oh, so adults are human beings. And then it kind of led to a thing of, no, I really like mentor characters because usually they learn just as much as the student characters do. They learn something about themselves or about the world or whatever. So I've always liked teacher characters, which is probably why my friend said, you'll really like Ian and Barbara. Please go watch these episodes. So I liked them anyway. I like the fact that they are teachers who have a lot to learn. I like that, particularly in Ian's case, he comes into the TARDIS with this kind of trying to think of like, the words aren't alpha male because that's wrong, but he has a very 60s mentality where he does. Yeah. He is like, no, I know how the world works and this isn't right. This is wrong. This is a trick, a forgery. And I think that's fair. I think all of us would go into that situation. Like if we had no previous idea what Doctor Who was, we ran into an old man in a junkyard with a box saying, yeah, this travels through time. You tell him to F off. You'd be like, yeah, all right. And then you try to leave because you'd be like, the bullshit. You would. Yeah, of course. Like, I don't care who you are. Barbara's the only one who's just like, okay, I think Susan's unhinged. We should leave. It's it's like that. And again, another reason why I love the Unearthly Child so much is because you watch these characters grow so much as it goes on. Like, they have no choice in the matter. You know, other people like Bill and Rose and Martha, they got to choose to go into the TARDIS. Okay, Tegan, not so much. You get my meaning, but for the most part, Ian and Barbara are the first people to ever be put in the TARDIS and forced to remain on the TARDIS and remain in some pretty horrible adventures. Like, meeting the Daleks the way they did is not a particularly fun
they got put through the ringer in their time.
Radiation poisoning, you know, it wasn't good. Then they watched their whole like world destroyed in the future. Again, you know, probably really eye-opening. And I think that's why I love those characters so much, because they go through, like, you know, the 60s mentality. I always imagined that they really grow as people and they want to share that love and understanding that they've been able to gain on the TARDIS when they leave. So I love them for that reason. I love their chemistry. Now I know that shipping is a thing, and I do ship them. I love Ian and Barbara. I think they are basically married.
Who doesn't? Of course they're married.
But of course there is the kind of the naysayers who are like, no, they're just friends. So if we're going to have that discussion, even if they are just friends, their chemistry is spot on.
Yeah, it really is.
Whether it is platonic or romantic, their friendship is the best part about them for me. Whether that's the moment in Unearthly Child that still makes me grin like an absolute bloody fool is when Ian offers to help Barbara. So Barbara's like, oh, I'm just really worried, and you know, I found like the address isn't correct, and Ian says, we'll have to find out for ourselves, won't we? And it's a bit alpha male, I suppose, if you want to look at it in a 2020 headset. He's like, well, I'll save the day, we'll go together. But I also thought it might be that he wants to help her because he likes her as a person, whether that's romantic or platonic.
And he wants to spend more time with her.
He wants to spend more time with her, and I think that's nice. And then she doesn't go, no, you're a man, I don't want to spend any. I can do this myself, because she probably could. However, she says, thanks for the we, and they decide to do it together. So it's their adventure together, and I think that's nice, personally. I think it's something like, if you watch the pilot for Doctor Who, like there's completely different vibes. You know, they can play it differently. They can play it where they just didn't really get on, because that's kind of what comes up from the pilot. So they just went, nah, let's make them warmer. And we know from what William Russell has said that they all got on really well. Like, William Russell's from Sunderland. Jacqueline Hill was from Birmingham. So they were both, you know, from, you know, similar aspects of the country, which meant they got on really well. Like, in the same way that Tom Baker and Liz Sladen were both like from the same areas. So like they had this in common, but also loved drama and loved, you know, all this stuff. And Jackie and Russ seem to get on really, really well. And I call them Jackie and Russ because I can, and I will. And that's
of course you can. Of course you can.
But no, they get on really well. And I think that's just obvious from how they play in the show. They hold hands and touch each other a lot more than just a friend and a friends would, by the way. Just saying, you know, voice to voice here. You know, we're I don't see that many. I don't hold my friends like that. Maybe that's just me, but particularly in the 60s, I'm like.
I'm taking an official podcast stance here, and I am planting my flag that I ship Ian and Barbara too. It's you know, it's fine if you don't, but
the spin-off books are also like
married.
Really good. I highly recommend, if you haven't read The Time Travelers, to do so, particularly to you, because I know you ship them.
Yes,
it hurts me emotionally in every single way. Also, I mean, like, this isn't a spoiler, but Susan's War, they don't say it, but they're practically married. Okay, Ian has a phone call from Barbara where she's telling him what is in the cupboard, so she can buy it at the shop. They are married, like it 100%. Or not, 100%.
So
Big Finish is canon anyways.
Yeah. Well, I want to move on to that slightly, because confession time. People who've listened to the first 2 episodes know that Big Finish is, and this isn't because this is a conscious choice in a positive way. Big Finish is completely unexplored territory for me. I have listened to nothing because I am saving it as a big Finish bit. 2021 is my Big Finish year. 2020 is my classic Who year, and then I'm going to go straight in, dive in, and go just ham on Big Finish. But
I'm very excited for you, my friend.
Yes, you've written for Big Finish. You wrote Master Thief, which very fittingly, because obviously I didn't know that your first episode was the Waters of Mars.
Yeah.
And now, all of these years later, you are writing in the Time Lord Victorious.
It's so weird. It's
How
so
mad is that?
mad. Like, I would never have thought
It's
someone
a
would have
beautiful
said.
full circle, isn't it?
It is.
It's a great little bit of alignment of the stars.
Odd.
So what was it? What was it like? I mean, like I said, I'm saving it, but from what I've heard, it's unbelievable. Everyone loves it. Everyone that I've seen loves it. And yeah, what was it like writing for Big Finish?
Well, I guess we should start with the story first of how that actually happened.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
So obviously 2021 is your year, but if you get a chance to 2021, 2022, whenever it may be, you need to attend a Big Finish Day. For those of you who haven't been to Big Finish Day, get on it. It is a good, honest, proper laugh. It's great. It's not like a massive convention where there's loads of like merchandise and stuff like that. It's not that kind of event. It's basically all up in Derby, and you just have all the voice actors and people who worked on it, the sound, or all that sort of stuff, and they're just gathered in a little local cinema. They take over. You get some of the actors as well. So last time I think we had Katie Manning, Tim Trelaw, Jon Culshaw, when people who are involved with Big Finish, and they announce it throughout the year who's coming, and they have like a stall for all the CDs and stuff, which is really good because if you buy the CDs there, they'll put the download version on at the same time. So instead of you buying them at an event, and then you just get the CD, no, because it's Big Finish, they can just say, okay, what's your account? And they'll just put the download version.
Oh, that's great.
They're really good.
Really
Their
cool.
customer service has always been pretty damn good, Big Finish anyway. But anyway, so I went to my first Big Finish in 2018, which I believe was in June 2018. Yes. And I want to say it might have even been 2017 at this point. I forget. It's like, it must be 2018. This year has really screwed up my dates. I think it must be 2018.
Yeah, everyone's messed up with years.
Yes. 2018. And there was a panel on writing with everybody. John Dorney was there, Matt Fitton, I think maybe was there. And Alfie Shaw was there, who'd just been made the new producer of the Short Trips range. So again, if you don't know the Short Trips range, they're like the kind of short stories that you can get for Big Finish. They cost $2.99 usually, maybe at a max $5.99. So it's like 2 coffees and you get Doctor Who in your ears. Yeah. It's great. I've always been a big fan of them. Some of my first Big Finishes were Short Trips. Anyway, so great. So Alfie is producer, and there's always been a thing about Big Finish about getting in. Now, for me, as a writer, as someone who wants to write, not just Doctor Who, but generally, I was interested in how they look for writers because, funnily enough, if they don't take unsolicited scripts, how do they find their talent, right? Is it word of mouth? Like, do you have to just email them? So I asked the question during the writing panel, but poor Alfie misheard me and thought it was, where do you get your ideas from? So he went on a tangent about writing generally and all that sort of stuff. And the long and short of it is we left that panel. It's a really good answer anyway, but he left the panel and went, I didn't answer her question. I misheard it. So he went, he sought me out. So, you know, I'm minding my own business. I think I just ran into a censorite.
Yeah.
I think it was literally in that moment I ran into a censorite.
I love that we can just
good...
say sentences like that, and
I know.
It makes complete sense.
It's amazing. But Alfie came to find me, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, I'm really sorry. I realised I completely misunderstood your question. You asked me a different question. Now, I'm quite nervous at this point. I was like, actually, I did. I was actually asking where you find new writers. He said, oh, why? Are you interested? And I was like, oh, well, yes, I am. He was like, have you written before? And I was explaining that I was currently writing a short story that was due to be published in an anthology, and that working on the bits and pieces. He was like, well, I'll be looking for new writers in the new year. If you want to email me, I'll let you know. But we ended up just chatting mindlessly anyway. And he said, I've not been to one of these before. And I said, oh, I've been to a few conventions, but not to this one. Everyone seems really nice. And we had a really good chat. He gave me his email address. And then I was like, right, I've got to prepare my portfolio for Alfie. So I spent 6 months trying to get into as much things as possible. I'd written for some charity anthologies. So I was like, oh, that's good. I've got that as well as backup as my original stuff. And then I got an email from him out of the blue asking if I wanted to pitch a short trip for the subscribers range. So again, if those of you aren't aware, there are, well, for the main range, which unfortunately is ending, so I don't know how subscriber short trips will work, but the subscriber short trips basically are just short stories that are within the main range for the subscribers. So if you were to buy Blood on Santa's Claw, which was last year's Christmas release for the main range, my story's on it with it as well. Yeah, as a subscriber. And that story I wrote was about the 12th Doctor helping a little girl because she didn't want to take the 11 plus back in the 1950s. So
that's really cute.
So I wrote that. There's a lot more to it, but that's just the basic premise. I don't want to spoil it. It was really good fun to write. I got to write the 12th Doctor putting a coat over a little girl because she was wet and cold. It was just everything I wanted to write about Doctor Who and more. And that was over. I got to go to the recording, which was in London. It wasn't the Big Finish studio. It was a little studio. Got to meet the director and everything. It was really lovely. Listening to someone reading my words was really mad. And then that was kind of it. And I was like, okay, I'll see if anything else happens. And then I got a message. So that was the October of 2019.
Yeah.
And then I got a message in January this year from Alfie, which was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like the Master? And I replied with, is this a trick question? And then he said, no, this is a job offer. I was just like, oh, okay.
That's a great way of offering.
It was like, genuinely, I was like, and basically he said that they were writing they wanted 2 master short stories for Time Lord Victorious, and would I be interested? And I said yes. And then I panicked. And that's kind of how it was. I was given an initial premise. So, sorry, people, I didn't come up with the actual storyline because with Big Finish as well. Of course. But I was able to flesh it out and make it grow as much as I wanted, really, as long as it fit the timing, and as long as it was true to the original brief. It was really fun. It was great fun to write Delgado, who, after watching Tale of the Autons hundreds of times, it was just so much fun to get right. And it was great to work with Simon Gurrier. I'd worked with him on a couple of Doctor Who magazine articles as well, so we knew each other really well, which is why I was asked, because Simon was already working on the other one. And they were like, oh, why don't we just ask Sophie? You worked with her before. And someone was like, yeah, let's bring Sophie in. And I was just like, why are you asking me? I'm a poor soul.
Well, you've knocked it out of the park, evidently.
Well, evidently I've done something right, because I keep
Of
getting people
course.
saying it's good. It's just really, it's just mad. It's absolutely maddening, because
Yeah.
when I found out that, like, when I saw the front cover with my name on it, I was like,
Oh my God,
'cause I
I can
hadn't had
only
that.
imagine.
because I with the subscriber short trip, it's just an extra file, basically.
Yeah, it's essentially like a B-side.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a
yeah.
B-side, right? It's
Yeah.
great. I loved the fact that was B-side. It was like a really nice little fun
Yeah,
piece
it's
of
really
thing
cool.
to have. But there was no front cover or anything. So I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then
What a cover it is as well.
and
By the
what
way.
a
It's
beautiful cover. Anthony Lamb, man. Oh, it's absolutely stunning. I saw the rough, which originally had 2 pyramids on it. And I had to go back and go, it's beautiful, but there's only 1 pyramid. I'm so sorry. He was like, no, it's fine.
That's okay.
Like, you know, stuff like that. It's just really, like, it's really quite cool. But but I think for me it was listening to the Third Doctor era titles, and then Jon Culshaw reading Master Thief by Sophie Iles. Was like, I mean, I cried when I heard it for Song for Running, and like, because it was the 12th Doctor theme, because I love the 12th Doctor so desperately. So yeah, it was just mad, and it's still mad.
Yeah, it is. I can only imagine. I can only dream.
It feels like absolutely nuts. Yeah,
That's mental.
We
it only came
known
out
about it for a while, because obviously they
of course. Yeah, I remember it knocking about for a while.
7th of October.
Yeah, on a slightly personal note, I actually wanted to touch on the fact that you know it's Jon Culshaw, because since I was a child, I mean, we're talking since I was like 5 or 6, and you know, seeing clips of Dead Ringers and stuff like that, I sort of remember him being my first hero, because I've always done like daft little impressions and stuff like that, but also he's the first celebrity that I saw who was from my area. He's from literally about 10 minutes away from where I grew up. He's from Ormskirk and I'm from Southport. So, you know, I saw him doing this stuff and I was like, I nothing against Jon, but I don't think there's many 6-year-olds who look at Jon Culshaw and go, I want to be Jon Culshaw. But I did. Like I was obsessed with Jon Culshaw. So what was it like?
I'll tell him that listen to the podcast, because we are friends. We are friends. So I'll
that would be incredible. If Jon Culshaw knew who I was, oh, that's got me a bit excited. But yeah, he's just because as well, that link, like the fact that he's from so close to where I'm from. Yeah, I've just always had this affinity with Jon Culshaw in my head.
Well, I'll put your nerves to rest. He is absolutely wonderful.
I bet he is.
Genuinely,
I bet he is.
Interestingly, like separate to Master Thief, we had a really interesting project going at the beginning of the year. It was my fault that I didn't get to finish it, but basically we met at Big Finish Day. So not the original one I mentioned, but the next one. He was a guest, along with Daisy Ashford, who plays Liz Shaw. And as with all of conventions I go to, if I've drawn you as an actor or a monster, I will give you something in relation to it that exists. So, for example, David Banks has a Cyber Leader pin. Jamie Hill has, I'm pretty sure I gave him a Cyberman that I have. Annette Badland has a Slovene pin. You know, all that stuff. So if I've drawn you, you get a picture. Obviously, I have a picture of the Brigadier. So I gave Jon a picture of the Brigadier, which he was so excited about. He kept showing it off at every opportunity. So, you know, we became friends. He followed me on Twitter, etc. And Anyway, I posted, and again, Twitter is amazing. I posted on
Mhm.
Twitter how much I loved hearing other doctors say other quotes because it changes the context of those episodes.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because I wanted to talk about this because
Yeah.
I think I know what you're about to say, and I was
And
listening to this
John,
morning,
John,
literally about 2 hours ago.
John messaged me and went, "That's a really interesting idea," and I went, "Well," and he just recorded it. I basically said how much I love the Heaven Sent intro and how
Yeah.
weird it would be if you heard it from John or Tom's perspective, because obviously hearing Tom Baker mourning Sarah and John Pertwee mourning Joe would completely change the context of Heaven Sent
Of course.
for a lot
Yeah.
of people. And I was like, it'd be so interesting to hear it. So John just recorded them and sent them to me. He didn't really explain. He just sent them to me. He also recorded Tom Baker doing the David Attenborough. Tom Baker's Ark in Space quote as David Attenborough.
Oh my God.
As well. So I was like,
that's incredible. I don't think
it was so good. And I was just sat there like, what do I do with these? So I quickly drew Third Doctor and the Fourth Doctor as though it's in the Heaven Sent background.
Yeah.
Them on YouTube. I asked John, obviously, am I okay to do this? He was like, oh yeah, sure. I just did it for fun. Like I'm practicing recording from home because I have to now. Which was lovely. And he recorded. So he did that. And then a load of other people went, oh, I'm an impressionist. Can I try, some others?
Yeah, because I was listening to the Jonathan Carley War Doctor one as well, which is great.
It's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah,
when you consider that he is now our War Doctor, our new young War Doctor.
I know his voice is incredible. All of them, all of the ones you posted. Go check them out on YouTube if you haven't, because they are so fun to watch.
I should really finish it because I do have a 9 and a 13 around somewhere that should really be done.
Oh really? Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm just terrible and I forgot. I had a pretty stressful couple of months around that point, and I was just like, I was supposed to do something. But yeah, I have a 9 and a 13, and then I think I only would have a 6 and a 6, 11.
2? I don't think you've done 2 yet.
Yeah, there's a few that I have missing, but not many
comparatively
to when I started, when I only had 2. So that was a bit nuts. But
that's great.
Because Elle did 10 for me. Anyway, but yeah, it was pretty mad. I just got loads of people wanting to do it, and then obviously because Jonathan has been announced as the War Doctor, people have been looking at them again, and I was like, oh sugar, I forgot.
Yeah.
That was all John. It was definitely all John.
You do so many things. You do so much. Like I can imagine that it's easy to forget all of the things that you do, because you're all over the place. And one thing just before we start to close off, I just want to mention, the fundraising recently has been incredible. I checked the amount for the charity live stream this morning. As of this morning, it was at $4,748. That's insane.
Which works out $3,500.
That's mental. So yeah, we in episode 2, I talked to Eggs Creeper George, obviously because he's got his charity live stream coming up, and then we talk about TARDIS Facts B. They're doing a fundraiser at the moment as well, and just the fundraising stuff that's going around the Doctor Who community at the minute is absolutely astounding, and it's amazing. And you should be so proud of what you've done. And Chibnall. Chibnall.
I look, I'm not gonna lie, absolutely the most stressful 2 minutes of my life, because every time you get, so if you have a Just Giving account or you've set up a fundraiser before, you will know that you just get an email saying someone's donated £10. Check it to see if they've left a message. Like, they don't tell you who, they just say the amount. So I was about to go have a nap because I'd had a seriously stressful morning and I was feeling a bit like stressed.
Yeah.
And I laid down to have a nap, and I have like a Fitbit, and it went boop boop, which meant I had an email or something. So I was like, I'll check it. And I've opened this email that just said, someone's just donated $1,700 and something to your fundraiser. Click to see if they have a message. But I didn't want to do it on my phone because it's not very clear. So I bolted out of bed. I ran to my computer. I was like hyperventilating. Like Jamie, my husband's working, going, "Are you okay?" I'm like, no. Like I was just like freaking out. I ran to my computer. I was like, someone's just donated like basically what was already in the till. Like what? And Jamie was like, okay, mental. Calm down. And I was like, I can't calm down. I need to know what's going on.
So you're hyperventilating at this point.
Fundraiser, and then I saw that Chris Chibnall was apparently the person who donated the money, and I was just like, what? Right? I think I did cry.
Of course, there's a lot of crying. This is a bit of a theme, but yeah, I can imagine why you cry,
but in a very good way. And I was like, I don't even know if this is real. So I'm quite lucky. I know Gary Russell quite well, and I know that he knows Chris Chibnall. So I asked Gary nicely if he would just double check for me that it was definitely Chris who sent the money, because I didn't want to assume that it was an anonymous person just putting Chris Chibnall. I didn't want some, it was
you didn't want
odd.
to assume either way.
I didn't want to assume. I just wanted to check before I suddenly went, oh, hey guys, look. It's not like he has a Twitter presence where I can just go, hey, dude. Which I think is completely fair. Chris, stay away from Twitter. It is not.
Please do. Please. You don't.
So
you don't want that.
I got the confirmation from Gary going, oh yeah, I saw it yesterday. Someone told me I really wanted to support Sophie in her work, and that was it. And I was just like, so yeah. So that, and then Ellie posted the actual thing of, oh hey, have you noticed? And I was like, yes, I've noticed. So yeah, which was amazing. And also
incredible.
We had the auction at the Quiz Rassilon, who, if you haven't been to a Quiz Rassilon online quiz, you really should go, because they are so much fun. Yes, okay, they're long, but to be honest, if you were at a pub doing the quiz, you'd be there just as long. The difference is that you're in your house doing it for a long time. It would be just as fun. It's just you're not in the same atmosphere. I think it's a great, really great little like quiz they do online. If you can't go to the London events, which is completely fair at this moment in time, they get some really interesting questions. Some of them are so difficult, you're like, my brain is now flipped back to front, and I don't know what's going on. It's great. It's really good fun. And I really highly recommend them. And Mikey was wonderful. He set up the auction with me on Rassilon, and we raised £300 just on the printed. Along with some goodies as well. Yeah. So, which is nuts.
That's amazing. Well, check out all of these fundraisers that we've mentioned, because they're all going to fantastic causes, and yours in particular has obviously gone mad. You've been in Radio Times. It's crazy, and again, you should be so proud. And I'm sure that everybody in the Who community is proud of it as well.
Thank you. I'm proud of everyone for putting in that money.
Yes. Well, before we go, we've got a little corridor to walk down, and it's the corridor of fame.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different. Anybody knows this. That's the exciting
dear. Sarah Jane?
Do I have the right?
Some people, small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
Yes, an anniversary compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could no more.
I'm not just the title. I'm the last of the title.
It just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right! Because it's
So, again, same with the DVD collection. I have no idea who you're going to pick.
Yes, you
no
do.
idea. I never do.
Surely you do. Everyone knows who I'm going to pick.
I have some ideas. Of course, every Doctor is already in. They're all in. So we're not going to go through. Like I said, we're not going to have 15, 16 episodes, or well, it's a lot more than that now. Going through every single incarnation of the Doctor, but everybody else is on the cards. So, who, Sophie Iles, have you picked to be hung up proudly in the corridor of fame?
So obviously it was between two people. I've decided to not pick the other one because I feel like someone will pick them over the other one. So I've picked William Russell.
Yes.
I've picked William Russell because, one, he's 96 as of today. His birthday was the 19th of November. So he is 96 years old. I believe to date he is the oldest living companion. He is still working. He did a Big Finish not long ago. He did a charity piece for Jamie and Man in the Box's NHS story. Like, he's still doing bits and pieces at 96. If I could do anything at 96, if I'm even alive at 96, I'd be pretty proud of myself. But also, he's had such a fulfilling career. Like, his son, I don't know if you all know this, but his son is Alfie Enoch. Alfie Enoch is my age. So that means when he was in his 80s, he was still having a good time. Like, I can't even... I don't even know if I have the words. He's just a really interesting
That's
actor.
fine. I mean, if you don't have the words, because
maybe I
don't think the words. I don't think words are needed. Because he's just. I mean, from my perspective, I think I put a tweet out about this to the same effect a little while ago. But Ian and Barbara, as characters, are as essential to every subsequent portrayal of the Doctor as William Hartnell is, because you can, as you watch, and I've watched the Hartnell era through rather than dipping in and out. As you watch it through, you see Ian's heroism and Barbara's kindness and both of their their intelligence and all of their emotions, they start to fuse into the Doctor. We meet this quite cold character at the start. He's got that twinkle and he's exciting and mysterious, but there's no doubting that he's not the Doctor we know now. But if you take, it's essentially what happens is, by the time Ian and Barbara leave in the chase, you've had all of the best bits of Ian and all of the best bits of Barbara, and they've just been poured into the Doctor.
I couldn't have put it better. That's basically it.
Yeah, and the Doctor is like, the 10th Doctor is a hero because of Ian Chesterton, and the 13th Doctor is so kind because of Barbara. And I just don't see any other companions who've obviously there are amazing companions. Liz Sladen is already in here. She is as a companion the quintessential companion, but I see more than I see them as companions. I see them as extensions of the Doctor and examples of what the Doctor can go on to become.
Yeah, that's very cool. Do I have words? I do have words. I think I agree with you entirely. I think it's summed up. If you if you read the comic that they did for the anniversary of Ian and Barbara and Matt Smith, they really do play on that as well. They play on Matt Smith's character being like, no, you're the reason I am who I am. And I think is such a powerful thing. And I guess, again, thinking about the timeless children thing, I guess that's why I get worried about what has happened to the Doctor before they turn up. If they're setting all these other Doctors before Hartnell, I'm wondering what those Doctors will be like, because like I'm just really curious of how they're going to play those.
Yeah, you almost
if you're calling
don't
them
want
the
them to be
Division
good.
Doctors, you don't want them to be good, because if you make them good, you're then kind of making the Hartnell era and all of that like progression feel tainted a bit.
Yeah.
So I get why people
agree.
are worried about it, but also, isn't it more interesting as well if the Division Doctors are actually a bit weird and
a bit morally ambiguous and
I mean, obviously we have morally ambiguous Doctors.
Yeah, of course.
For the most part, but like, I mean, to be fair, Ruth, when we're introduced to her as a Doctor, the first thing she does when she starts to remember anything is rip off a Jadoon's horn. Now, that is not Doctor behavior.
And then she breaks the glass, and then she picks up a gun.
Yeah, and I'm like,
so, and I have faith in Chibnall as a fan, rather than a showrunner. As a fan of the show, I don't think he would do anything. I don't think it would be disrespectful, but it would just be. It would just taint, as he said, that development that we get in those early 60s episodes. But yeah, William Russell. What a man. What a man. What a hero.
I mean, he played my other big fascination at the moment, apart from Dungeons and Dragons, because I'm playing a lot of D&D, is the Arthurian legend stuff. And if you don't know this, fans really should go and watch The Adventures of Sir Lancelot, which is William Russell as Sir Lancelot. It's not authentic Arthurian in any which way. Even how he portrays Lancelot isn't really correct, because Lancelot isn't that nice, really. But that's another story for another podcast. However, him as a knight is fun anyway. And there's a brilliant photograph of him sat on a horse smoking a pipe, and it is just one of the best photographs to exist from any filming of anything at that period of time. You must go find it. Obligatory William Russell photograph. But
yes,
he's great. And it's just so inspiring that, like, he inspired a load of he inspired so many different companions that we've had later on. Like if you look at Jack Harkness, if you look at Jamie McCrimmon, if you look at Ben, if you look at even Stephen Taylor, you look at all the male characters that we've had who support the Doctor, really are because Ian's Action Man worked. Like, I know that obviously the Doctor can now do his own stunts or their own stunts, depending. But it's always nice to have someone who is a bit more morally ambiguous, who is thinking they're doing the right thing, to do the stuff that the Doctor would not do. The one to have the guns, the one to push the Daleks, the one to do all that stuff. And I think it doesn't have to be male or female. We've had Sarah Kingdom with the guns in the Daleks master plan and stuff. So it's not gender specific. But without Ian's input at the beginning, I feel like you wouldn't have had that sort of character. If it was just Barbara and Susan in the TARDIS, I think it'd be a very different type of show, because Hartnell wouldn't be able to do those action things. It would be a lot more dialed back, which is probably why I find I love Doctor Who and the Daleks, the films and stuff, but I don't like their portrayals of Ian very much. Or I love Roy Castle, don't get me wrong, don't come out and hate me. I love the film, but I always feel sad that Ian is made to be more of a joke in those films, where in the series he's a confident and intelligent and somewhat clumsy occasionally individual.
Yeah, of course.
Who has to learn with everybody else that he's not actually man.
Yeah. So, what a great choice. What a great pick. So he joins obviously all the Doctors. as well as three companions so far in 3 episodes. I'm liking it. I like the companion love. We've got Elizabeth Sladen, John Barrowman, and now William Russell. So happy days. Now I feel like I could talk for hours. I feel like I could talk for hours because there's so much you've done, but we're gonna wind down now because I have one final question for you.
Okay.
Which is a question that I ask everybody. In a sentence, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
Doctor Who is life-changing and life-affirming in every possible way. I think is the only sentence I can really give it.
No, it's a lovely sentence. We've had some great ones so far.
What's the other two?
Tom said that he said something along the lines of literally just creativity in all its forms. That's all he said. And George gave a speech. I think I forgot to mention a sentence, but it's fine because it was a speech that nearly brought me to tears about Doctor Who. But yeah, I think we all agree.
Yeah,
we all agree. Life-changing, life-affirming. Completely agree. Well, it's been an absolute joy to speak to you. This is your time, even though, let's be honest, you have a much larger platform than me, but you plug away. You plug what you want to plug.
Well, I guess the only thing I will plug is from the first week of December, my Etsy store is going to be open for the first time this year for Christmas. So if you want any badges, any pins that you couldn't get before, if you want any prints, they are kind of a first come, first serve on Etsy. And I'm going to try and get them to people all over Christmas. Obviously, my concern is that the mail has been pretty terrible recently.
Yeah.
So the sooner people order, the better, which is why I'm doing a sale for the first week of December. And try and post everything on the end of that week. So at least then anything that's purchased in that week will be available to people for Christmas. The new Benny Summerfield collection, which I am part of, comes out in December. I've written a short story about Brax and Benny. So if you want to buy that, that's part of the Benny Summerfield collection, Christmas collection. And
amazing.
Follow me on Twitch because I draw every Wednesday and Sunday, and I'm hoping to play Life is Strange. I think on a Monday or a Thursday. I haven't decided which day, probably a Thursday. So if you want to watch me play video games as well, I do that too. And I guess just watch this space, because the thing is I have lots of stuff that's been written that I'm just kind of waiting to be released. I have one short story that's due to be released. I have a novel in progress that will be released at some point next year. And a few charity things that I'm doing. So there's lots going on, but I can't give affirming dates.
No, that's fine.
Soon is all I can say. Is
as well. Soon. Your Twitter is Sophie Iles Tweets, yeah.
Yeah, it's Sophie Iles Tweets. So the
Sophie Iles Tweets. Yeah, they apologise.
No, that's all right. It's
but
easier.
You're always posting great stuff on there. Your art is amazing. The pins are great. I need to get myself a pin. But yeah, I second all of that. I'm also plugging all of that because it's all great stuff. And to allow me to plug slightly, you can follow us at Who Knew Podcast on Twitter. You can also tweet me directly, Josh Ryan Carr. You can also send us an email. We've got an email now, which is whoknewdwpod@gmail.com. If you want to send me an email for any reason, bring it over. That's fine. I'm happy to read them. But again, it's been great to talk to you. I'm sure we'll have to have you on again at some point because there's so much to talk about. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to have you. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening. And have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes every week. And if you can leave us a review, it would really help us out. And a big thank you to the Sononauts for providing cover of the Doctor Who theme as the theme tune for the podcast.